What do you think of when you hear the word rosebud? If you are someone who appreciates the fine arts, or you would consider yourself a movie lover, then you might recognize this word from what is considered to be one of the greatest movies ever made, also known as Citizen Kane. And for those of you who maybe don't understand that reference, this was the very last word uttered by the main character, who just had oodles and oodles of wealth, like considered one of the richest men in the movie. It was the very last word that he uttered on his deathbed, and no one knew what it meant during the entire movie until someone finds out that it was the name of his childhood sled. And I find that so interesting, and it is such a famous line in cinematic history, because when you have someone with more money than you even know what to do with, by doing the work that you love, which in the case of this movie happened to be in the newspaper printing or publishing industry, it's so interesting that after a lifetime of wealth and building up your reputation, your credibility, the one thing, the literal last word that you utter is the name of your childhood sled. Absolutely incredible to me. The reason that I brought up that reference was because I think the intersection of creative business and money is so interesting, because you have these people that in the classical sense pour their heart and soul into their art and make pennies off of it. Van Gogh, for example, is the first example that comes to mind. And then you have business people that are like rolling in the dough, cold hard cash, right? And I feel like there's this weird centerpiece that isn't always talked about, which is money within creative businesses, like book publishing or like newspaper publishing in the instance of Citizen Kane. And when it comes to money, you not only need it to survive, but you also need it in order to sustain your ideas and to grow and to scale your business. So I thought that dynamic, that paradox, I guess, if you will, would just be super interesting to dive into. So let's go ahead and do exactly that. The interesting thing about money, in my opinion at least, is that if you get too attached to it, you risk losing the vision or the creative sight that you have. Like, in my opinion, when you start chasing the money rather than your creative pursuit, I feel like that's when things start to get a little bit wonky, a little bit warbly. I mean, I'm still young. I've got my whole life ahead of me. I have yet to make my millions, but at least in my opinion, I feel like money should always be the side effect or the byproduct of whatever it is that you're pursuing. It's like you have to acknowledge it without actually seeing it, you know? It's like, oh, this is such a weird comparison, but it's like Medusa. If you look at it, you turn to stone, cold, hard cash, right? It's almost like you have to acknowledge it's there without actually looking at it. It's like, this is what I have my sights set on. There's a need for it. There's potential for it. I have a feeling about it. I'm working hard toward it. And then I think money tends to favor the humble and the hardworking. Now, again, this is a very general statement. There's always going to be exceptions to any general statement that's made. This is just my opinion, and I'm not about to dive into the philosophy of money and capitalism and all that, because that's a little too broad for the scope of this video, but I find that stuff so interesting. Now, recently I made a video called Everyone's a Sellout in the Creator Economy, which was based off of an article that I read on Vox. It was a bit of a longer one, but it was a very good one. I highly recommend reading it or just watching the video if you want. I'll link both down below. But this dives a lot into how nowadays in the creator economy, when everyone is a content creator or you have to be online, everyone is chronically online, whether they want to be or not, just to keep up with the times, you almost have to be your own business owner or business manager, I guess, in order to have any kind of impact, whether you're a musician, whether you're an artist, whether you're a graphic designer, whether you're even an author, right? It's like we have commodified the arts so much that it's become more about the entertainment of it rather than the value of it. So this is kind of like another sort of discussion branched off of that. So feel free to check that out if you end up liking this discussion that's happening in this video. But at least I find this so interesting because in my work, what I do right now is I do digital marketing for service-based businesses. I started this about a year ago. I've gone through about 4 or 5 different iterations of this business. I started out with something called a publishing power pack when I was talking more about books and publishing. And this was meant to give people an idea of what their ideal publishing path is and create a plan of action to help them do that. Now, the problem with that is that it was so niche and so particular that I don't think people recognized it was a problem until they got to that specific point. So anyway, I ended up kind of testing out newer and newer ideas based on the feedback and the interest that I was getting from referrals and building up word of mouth through my network and stuff. And eventually, I found out that people really liked getting support and help with digital marketing, especially business owners. It's too time intensive. Maybe there's so much going on that it falls to the bottom of their to-do list. Maybe it's something that they just don't know anything about. They're like, I don't know what needs to be done. I'd rather have someone come in and just do it for me. That's when I found out that there was kind of a need for it. And within those different creative spaces, this is where we have to have conversations about money and about payment structures and invoices and all of that stuff can be really kind of uncomfortable in the same way that it can be uncomfortable for an artist to promote themselves. And money, I feel like, can easily be a validation of that promotion. Or like someone sees you, they like what they see, and they want to pay you for it. And that can be uncomfortable for people. So within this video, I also want to highlight my own personal relationship with money while also keeping the conversation broad enough that you feel like your perspectives can be introduced as well. So at least in that context, when it comes to money in business, it acts as security. Money can act as validation, like I said. Money, especially for the business owner, the one who's really going for the gold, can act as a means for scalability. Money provides the foundation for you to be able to scale your impact. And I very recently hired a VA, and that was something that I did not think that I would be doing within 1 year of starting my business. And this is in no way meant to like brag or show off or toot my own horn or anything. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm very proud of myself for being able to do that. But at least in that sense, when you're wearing your business owner hat, it's like you have to think of money as a way to continue your impact or to further your message. Now, switching from business to the arts, right? This is kind of where we start to get into that martyrdom. And I'm going to borrow some thoughts and words from the wonderful, the amazing Elizabeth Gilbert. She wrote a book called Big Magic. I don't know if you've read it before. I loved it. I love the angle that she has because her whole book is about talking about the human relationship that we have with our creativity. And one of the things that she talks about is this like archaic notion of suffering for your work, which she calls the cult of artistic martyrdom. In reference to my last video about everyone being a sellout, this kind of lends to that idea of like, it's punk not to care. Like you're supposed to care, but no one is actually supposed to know that you care. And suffering is sort of like this weird twisted way of caring for your work. I don't know. I almost think of a Hemingway or something when I think of martyrdom. But anyway, Liz says that martyr energy is dark, solemn, macho, hierarchical, fundamentalist, austere, unforgiving, and profoundly rigid. By contrast, there is the trickster. And she says, if anything, if you're ever going to lean into either one of these, go the trickster route. Because the trickster energy is light, it's sly, it's transgender, it's transgressive, it's animist, seditious. I've never heard of that word, but seditious, primal, and endlessly shape-shifting. Now, kind of hopping back to the business sense, I guess it can be considered martyrdom in the corporate sense because people sometimes do suffer for their work. They wake up every day going to a job that they at best maybe tolerate in a 30, 45 minute commute, let's say one way, work a 9-to-5 job, have to travel all the way back home. It is a lifestyle that you kind of suffer for. So why do people stay in it? Well, there's something known as the golden handcuffs. And this is kind of what it sounds like. And I've never worked corporate, but at least in the context of this video, golden handcuffs is when your employer provides a lot of different benefits that sort of deter you from pulling the plug and just backing out and leaving your job altogether. Maybe this looks like really, really great benefits. Maybe this looks like really great healthcare. Maybe this looks like generous paid time off. Maybe this looks like large 5-figure bonuses that you get multiple times a year. It's just all of these incentives that keep you sucked into it. And all of those things maybe benefit your family, maybe it benefits you, and it's just so hard not to leave. So at least in that businessy corporate kind of sense, the martyrdom notion still does exist, and you're kind of chained to your desk for the sake of money because money fuels your lifestyle. And if you've built this lavish lifestyle or this very comfortable lifestyle with the money and the compensation that you're getting and you pull the plug on it, it's like, well, when you lose your job, you lose your lifestyle, And if we're kind of flashing forward to the whole creator economy, sort of based on the last video that I did, in the case of golden handcuffs in that context, you literally have to dance for your money. I mean, think about people on TikTok. You have all these content creators and, at least back when COVID was happening, people would make a lot of money through sponsorships is the first one that comes to mind, like they would dance in their video, maybe show a can of soda or something at the end and get paid a lot of money for it. And in a way, if you kind of think about it, that too is martyrdom. Like it's just kind of sad where you literally have to dance for your money, or you have to play for your money, or you have to design for your money. And I guess it depends on which way you look at it. Maybe you see it as a blessing to be able to make money off of your creations. I tend to see the glass half full, so that would be kind of my category. But if you've been in it for so long and you've created this reputation and this following and this brand recognition or this brand awareness, I imagine it would be very similar, where it would be very hard to pull out of it because you're getting all this money, because you have all of this attention, because you're getting all these sponsorships. It's like you're chained to your art. And I find that stuff so interesting. Now, what I do think is interesting too, equally if not more interesting, is what people do when they have their money. Because at least in Western culture, it's very, very normal, very common to be super flashy or super public with your wealth. And this most often takes the form of nice houses or nice cars or nice bags, nice watches, maybe even your social circle. Everyone flies out to the Hamptons for the summertime, and that's like where all the rich, wealthy people live. And I have my own ideas and thoughts around that, some of which I will share in this video, but I don't really think it's that much different, because if you're showing off your wealth through your different lifestyle choices, if something hits the fan, if you lose your job, if something doesn't work out, or if you just simply don't want to do it anymore, it's kind of like you lose your lifestyle too. And then it's like I've heard these stories of, people living beyond their means, the breadwinner or whoever loses their job, and now the family can't let anyone else know that they lost their job, and they have to, keep up appearances, and it just seems so much messier than what it needs to be, which in this case, I think that particular kind of relationship with money can be a toxic one, I would say. But this is what I really like. If/when I ever make my millions, I really love the idea of secret wealth. And this idea of secret wealth is very, very similar to the golden rule of, if you ever win the lottery, don't tell anyone, because everyone is going to be wanting something from you. Everyone's going to be coming out of the woodworks like, hey man, I just broke my arm, I could really use some money, or oh man, I'm really having trouble with XYZ. If you win the lottery, don't tell anyone. And I feel like it can kind of go hand in hand, at least in the creative business sense. If you make money doing what you love, and feeling secure enough in who you are as a person and your efforts, and not feeling the need to be so flashy with it, it's just kind of like a really nice kept secret for yourself. Why? Because it's no one else's business but your own, in my opinion. Having money, I don't think it's totally worth knowing, because if you share that information, the other person is either going to have more or a little bit less, and either way, I have a feeling it would still make for a bit of an awkward conversation. So at least in terms of, money to fuel your lifestyle, I really like the idea of secret wealth. You could be living in middle of the road, middle class home, a kid or two, maybe you're just living by yourself, but you just kind of live below your means because you're okay with that. I personally do not feel the need to buy a golden throne. I don't need a gold toilet. To me, that's just kind of extra. And if you have this secret wealth, maybe one day you die, your kids inherit your money or something, and then it's like, holy cow, where did this come from? I had no idea this is we just lived the average middle class American lifestyle. Something about that is just really, really attractive to me, I think, because it's so secret. Now, I do think it's worth having conversations around your means of acquiring money or of earning money or getting money. If you work a typical 9-to-5 job, let's say, this opens up a great conversation to discuss issues that you maybe didn't know existed in the first place. For example, the gender pay gap or something. Or maybe you start talking with a coworker, you find out that they make $10,000 more than you a year for doing the same thing. Oh, I wonder why. Maybe I need to ramp up my negotiation skills or something. I think in that way, talking about money can be very healthy and very constructive. Now, when it comes to the having it, I guess that's up to you to determine, what benefit do you think you would get out of openly talking about how much money you have? For me, I prefer to keep that secret, but for others, they feel comfortable, being more flashy with it. I'm not saying one is right, one is wrong, but I am saying that people do have their preferences and they know why. Now, circling all the way back to where we first started this video, I know I kind of went on a bit of a tangent that didn't necessarily have to do with the creative arts, but at least when it comes to balancing your creativity and your financial goals, I think it is worth prioritizing your creative mission. Why is it that you do what you do? Your why should be your anchor. It's your sun that has that gravitational pull to everything else around you. Why you do what you do. Would you keep doing it even if you weren't getting paid for it? For me, I did. I had to do a lot of work for free for an undesignated amount of time until the money did start kicking in and word of mouth started taking off and I started getting more clients. And I'm at a place now where, I can feel like I'm right on the edge of consistency. When you go into business with yourself, you have to give a lot of hard work away for free in order to let people know that you are a safe bet, that you are a worthwhile investment. And then from there, as your case studies start to build up, then, your money or your financial investment or the cost of the services that you charge, that can increase as your reputation and your value does. And for me, my biggest anchor is that whatever I do, it has to be good. Like, it has to be good. The value that I provide has to be worth more than whatever the investment they're paying is. Why? Because that is always a nice surprise. People like being told that they don't need to spend extra money if they don't have to, which is what I do in my line of work. If people are like, I want to spend money on ads, I'll be like, you probably shouldn't, because it wouldn't really get you the results that you're wanting, and here's why. Or, it's in that way you can have a positive relationship with money because you're building up that credibility, that value, and you're providing quality work. Quality. I feel like that is the biggest word that I can think of right now, at least in today's digital age where everything is so trend-based and there are such cheap theatrics around what we do in the digital sense, that whatever you do, be consistent and be good at it. Like, quality. Whatever I do, however much I grow, however much money I make, however much money you make, or how much you grow, please keep quality at the center of whatever it is that you do. I would also say to consider setting financial boundaries if you haven't already. What does enough look like for you? For me, enough looks like having enough to cover all my bases and having a little bit of extra fun money. Maybe that looks like a vacation. For me, I am humble enough and secure enough in myself to not feel the pull toward a Ferrari or to a nice house. That just doesn't look like success for me. Success looks like stability, it looks like choice, and it looks like having options. And, maybe some people agree with that, maybe some people don't agree with that. Everyone has their own vision. So I would consider thinking about, what does enough look like for you in your business in terms of money? And of course, it's always worth considering, what other income streams are you able to open up so that you're not overly reliant on just one stream of income, right? My husband and I have this thing that I actually learned from my parents, which is that if you were to buy a house that only one of you is able to afford. Because if something hits the fan, someone loses their job, whatever their main thing was falls through, the other person can still afford the risk. They can still afford the house. Your lifestyle is not going to come crumbling down. So in order to kind of reduce that risk, in a perfect world, you'd be able to have multiple income streams. And for me, I have learned that this is particularly valuable through partnerships, building up your network, seeing what the overlap is, viewing each other as complementary rather than competition, and finding ways to overlap so that you can do double the amount of work, maybe split some of the profits, and have a pool of different referrals and word of mouth going. Like, I've got two people in particular that I'm thinking of with this. I've got this group over here, I've got this group over here, and I've got my thing in the middle. And each of those has their own little culture, their own little ways of doing things, their own systems and processes and deliverables and outcomes and all that stuff. So think about who you know, what they do, if it's similar to you, and if there's enough overlap that you would want to consider joining forces. And if you don't feel like you know anyone in that space yet, or who does the stuff that you do, that's where networking comes into play. And there's lots and lots of free networking opportunities, both virtually and in person. I met my main group on meetup.com. So I would highly recommend doing that. And then finally, of course, in order to maintain your efforts, if you're really wanting to grow this thing, is to build systems and eventually outsource tasks so your focus isn't solely on being the jack of all trades, unless you enjoy doing that. But at least when it comes to scalability, that's where delegation comes into play. When do you delegate? When you have enough money. How do you make enough money? That answer is going to look different for a lot of people, but based on my experience, I would say it's giving away a lot of really good value to people who appreciate it based on the people in your network. If you don't have that, then you network a lot. So I really hope that this was helpful, but I just really want you to understand that money is a relationship, not a thing. Money is, I would argue, a reflection of you and your values. I would say that money is also an amplifier. Whoever you are, whatever you do, whatever your insecurities are, I feel like money can act as a mirror for all of those things. And if you have a toxic relationship with money, I don't know, maybe consider looking inward. Maybe you have a toxic relationship with yourself that you have or have not acknowledged. I would say that money also doesn't get rid of your problems. I think it just creates new ones. I don't have enough money to be able to say that from experience yet, but it is a suspicion of mine. And I did think that it was worth sharing. Priorities change, perspectives change, and I think that can kind of fluctuate depending on, what your financial status looks like. So that's all I have for you in this video. I really hope you found it enlightening. I'll be sure to link a bunch of resources down below. And also, if you are a creative business owner and you're wanting to learn how to grow, kind of get this thing off the ground and going and ultimately become profitable, you should really consider checking out creativecon.com. We have an annual creative business networking event with workshops with a lot of amazing speakers. We've, got a Facebook group and all this cool stuff. So if you're looking for a place to land or just to network, that is a fantastic group to be a part of. A lot of people are starting out. A lot of people are already successful, but that's kind of where my roots are currently at. And it's a really, really awesome community. So if you're looking for a place to go, I would highly recommend that. Otherwise, that's all I have. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'll see you in the next one. Take care until then, and I'll see you next time. Bye.